Everybody, this is Braeden again from MMA Island, and I'm visited today by the one and only Jose Shorty Torres, set to fight on November 6th against Ali Bagutinov in the semifinals of the flyweight tournament in Brave CF. First of all, again, thank you so much for being here. I know you're very busy in camp. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm in literally the mountains of Dagestan. It's kind of ridiculous. It's literally Rocky Four, but the Shorty Chronicles, and it's I don't even know how to explain it. Like I'm a city boy. And I'm literally in a village where I'm just in the middle of the mountains. We're doing mountain runs every day. We have this single gym that's like an Olympic training center, wrestling room, in again the middle of nowhere. And I have nothing but just phenomenal guys helping me out. So it's a dream come true.
That sounds amazing. The fight's a couple of weeks out, right? So as we're getting closer now, what's the mindset like?
The mindset's real positive. For me, when I first knew I was gonna fight Ali, there was a little bit of anxiety of like, man, I'm fighting in a sense a legend, a guy who helped bring up this flyweight division, that helped start up the UFC, fought Demetrius Johnson for the belt, was one of the best pound for pound fighters in the flyweight division back in the day. And for me, and then in Russia, like he's an icon, he's a mini Khabib, literally. So for me, it's like I'm fighting a legend of the sport, and it's like De La Hoya fighting Chavez. It's a passing the torch, but I have to earn that torch, and for me, I'm excited to do so. And there's a lot of trials and tribulations at a camp, injuries, travel, this and that, but I mean, all this is so much worth it. Again, I'm in the middle of Dagestan training, and I couldn't ask for anything better.
You just mentioned something that is really interesting. You said it's sort of a passing of the torch moment, right? And like I think that's sort of a narrative that I keep hearing a lot everywhere about this fight. Obviously you're very established now, but Ali Bagutinov, like you said, has been around a very long time. He's almost done it all, right? So do you feel like there's sort of that new school versus old school feel to this fight, this sort of passing or uh yeah, like that generational aspect?
Yeah, he's 36 years old. I'm 20 now, entering my prime. I hope he's out of his prime, but he did a phenomenal job against Dustin Ortiz, and Dustin Ortiz, given he had a long layoff, his last fight being against Joseph Benavidez, but he was number 3 in the world. And Ali was already outside the UFC, and for Dustin Ortiz to be highly ranked coming into Brave, and Ali just kind of doing what he did with him, just kind of maneuvering around him and not manhandling him, but just again, I was commentating that fight. He just looked so calm and it was so methodical. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a tough fight, and it just gets me more excited. I idolize Dragon Ball Z, so I am that Goku prospect where it's like I get jitters when I'm gonna fight someone that good because I know I can't take them lightly. I know I can't just start off slow and slowly increase my tempo. I have no choice but to start off strong with this guy, and that's something that I'm excited about because I haven't had that for a long time. When I fought for Titan FC, when I fought for the belt, the guy was 18-2, Patron Obre. And then when I bumped up, I fought 17-7, Farkad Sharipov, and I was 3-0 and 4-0. So for me, it's like all the odds were against me, and that just motivated me more to win the belt. For me, with this one with Ali, it's like I believe his record's 21-7, give or take. So it's like he has 3 times the record I have. I'm 10-1-1. That's triple times the fight, plus hundreds of Sambo accolades. Like literally, with one of the commentators was reading all his accolades, and it looked like Santa's Christmas list. I was like, this is ridiculous. So it just, the jitters are awesome in a good way, and it just gets me that much more excited. But it is a passing of the torch, and I just have to live up to everyone's expectations, especially my own.
For sure. It's funny. I spoke to Mohammed Shahid a few weeks ago, and he was talking about Brave and like Brave's plans for the future. And one of the things he said was they really want to feed the amateur system and kind of build MMA from the ground up. And you're obviously one of the best examples of someone who's kind of done that. Like, went through that amateur system and thrived before getting a professional career. And you just said Bagutinov has like triple the numbers you do in terms of record, but you had all that amateur experience before you made it into the professional career. So it's not as though you don't have those like that amazing amount of
Yeah.
fights, right? So like as a newer generation who did go through that amateur system, how do you feel like that sort of, is there any advantage to that in your professional career now, having gone through that system that maybe Bagutinov didn't?
100%. You look at boxing, for example, almost every single fight, no matter how many championships they hold as professional, Triple G's amateur record comes up. Oscar De La Hoya's amateur record comes up. Lomachenko, 300 and what, 97 and 2 or 97 and 1 record always comes up because it's phenomenal. Given I don't have that, 300 and some matches, I was 25 and 1 plus 50 plus in kickboxing and Muay Thai and hundreds in wrestling, stuff like that. But even guys under me, like another guy in my promotion, Mokaev, Mohammed Mokaev, he's literally a protege of me. He's following my blueprint and doing so much more. He won worlds twice, like I did, but he also won all the regional tournaments, like the European Championships and Asian Opens. We didn't have that when I was an amateur. So the amateur system's growing more and more, and we're seeing these amateurs coming up and moving up faster in the accolades than even I did. And that just shows that how important this amateur record is, and that's why I say it's like a job interview. You're gonna usually hire the guy who has the most accolades. So when you go to amateur to professional, you want to get as many accolades as possible as an amateur to move up to those professional ranks. I don't care if you're 0 and 30 or 30 and 0. Once you go pro, like that's just nothing but a resume. Hopefully, obviously, it's good. So for me, against Ali, I do believe he still has more of the obviously the professional experience fighting extremely high level guys, but I'm not that far off. And that's something that I really want to show to the world, not just to the world, but really to myself at 29 years old, fighting one of the best in my division's history. So it's again, it's a passing the torch for me. It's a whole Rocky Four moment, but the Shorty version.
Are there any like particular experiences or lessons that you got out of the amateurs that are like really affecting like this moment in your career, like at this point?
The big thing about the amateurs, especially with the IMUF, is when you're in the States, all of our styles are kind of the same. We're in the States, we're all kind of well-rounded, but in different countries, they're a little more well-rounded in maybe jiu-jitsu. Obviously you go down to Brazil, they're jiu-jitsu Muay Thai. You go to Great Britain, they're probably boxing jiu-jitsu. You go to different places, you go to, Kazakhstan, Dagestan, they're great with their Sambo jiu-jitsu wrestling, so it's a very different thing. I mean, I was last week, I'm an all-American wrestler, so I'm not a bad wrestler. And I decided to go with some of these guys just wrestling day. And MMA day, I was fine. I was like, okay, cool, I can punch, get out of positions, I'm doing fine, like I'm good. And then out of nowhere, we do just wrestling day, and these guys are sweeping me, tripping me. Like it was almost an embarrassment. I could tell they were toying with me. And then after, they're like, Shorty, that man's striker. I was like, he's a striker? Oh, damn. Oh, okay. Well, he's like, how many pro fights he has? He's like, he's amateur. I was like, oh man, this isn't helping at all. So these guys are phenomenal, and training at different countries, seeing their work ethic. I mean, all the Dagestani guys, man, like no one complains. Everyone is possibly injured. Everyone's possibly in some type of pain, but they just push through. No matter what the coach says, they do it. And they're all doing something extra. Like all these guys can do the splits and, put their head to their knees. And I'm just like, trying to touch my toes, So it's these guys, their work ethic is ridiculous. So I think amateur wise, being able to fight around the world, especially in the IMUF, I think that's the biggest thing. If you're an amateur, try to compete for the IMUF. I know the U.S. is having a little bit of a predicament in our national federation, but if you get a chance to compete in the IMUF, you're fighting pro level guys from around the world at the amateur ranks, and that's the best thing you can do, because if you lose there, it doesn't matter. It's just practice, and that's the way I look at it.
Right. That kind of ties really well into something I wanted to bring up today. So you posted a post on Instagram last week that was super cool. That highlight of you ground and pounding with that, like just with that wicked ground and pound, and the caption, even before Dagestan, I knew how to smash. I'm just learning now how to perfect it. First of all, that very badass post. That was super cool. But I was curious, like, what is it about Dagestan? Like you said, like wrestling, sambo, like it's almost like in their blood, right? But is it just a big technical thing? Is it the intensity there? Like, what is it about Dagestan specifically that makes up that little difference?
I think the sport is sambo in general, because that's what the sport is. It's judo jiu-jitsu with a mixture of like pancration. There's no real big punches to the face, but you can punch, you can attack, you can, you're pretty much training with MMA gloves. That's the closest thing you can get to, in a sense, an MMA fight. Pancration, pretty much sambo and pancration. So these guys have been training their whole life. I remember in 2015 when I was being initiated to the KHK team, Khabib and Islam Makhachev were part of that team. And a bunch of the Dagestani Eagle guys came in, and I got to play with them, given I'm a flyweight. Both those guys are lightweights, and some of the guys are bigger. So I was like, oh, I'll move around with them. And all of them, no matter who they took down, no matter what the takedown was, it was straight to a crucifix, whether it was taking the back or taking the, from a side mount crucifix and just beating you up. No matter what, like every position was takedown, locker wrist, punch, 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 punch. And you're like, man, usually everyone, at least jiu-jitsu wise in the States, or from what I've noticed around the world, they want to solidify a position. Okay, cool, I have side mount. Now I can work and do this. No, they don't care at all. They don't care what position they get, as long as they can trap something, a wrist, an arm, and then they're just punching because they're making you panic. And then in that panic, you do something dumb and oh cool. Now they have an arm triangle, now they do something. So they've perfected just making you struggle, and being able to grab like the smallest little limb, whether it's an ankle, whether it's the wrist, and putting that pressure on. Again, these guys, rolling around with them, they're not great at jujitsu. They're just phenomenal with their pressure. They know how to implement that pressure, and they know how to implement the right positions to beat you up where out of nowhere you're panicking like, man, I can't move, or oh man, it's hard to breathe. And now you put yourself in a vulnerable position. Either you're getting hit more, or now you're in that wrestler, arm triangle, different types of chokes. So again, these guys aren't phenomenal jiu-jitsu. They know their stuff, but it's just the pressure. And that's something that I feel like they just don't know anything else. It's nothing but, and that's something I say with my style. Like I was never taught to move backwards. It's only to move forward. So for them, it's the same thing. They only know, let me take you down and smash. This is what Khabib does. Then we all have to do that. That's literally what everyone does here. And it's like, it's almost like everyone's the same style, so no matter what size you are, no matter who you are, I'm like, man, I just got to worry about this takedown, because they're all really good at transitioning with whatever combination to the takedown, to a position, and just striking while getting in that position. And these guys just don't hesitate. They don't wait. And that's something that's very different around the world. We think too much about trying to solidify a position to maybe, let me hold this guy down, or let me just lock my hands first. No, they don't care. They're just trying to grab a wrist and punch away.
So has it been a lot of specifically sambo training that you've done up there as well in this camp?
I've done a lot, but for me, it's definitely defending the takedown, because Ali Bagutinov, being more the sambo slur, being the very forward pressure fighter that he is, I know he wants to grapple. He is a shorter opponent, which is weird, for me being shorty and being the taller opponent, but he wants to grapple. He wants to put me against the defense, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm great with the Muay Thai. I'm great with my own wrestling. I'm great with my own sambo style, but we've been practicing a lot of upper body conditioning, because that's something, again, that these in doing, they're just, it's all upper body, just pummeling the whole time, being able to grapple, being able to put you in positions. And most people just aren't used to that. They can do that for one round, but they that for a total of 15 minutes. After 10 minutes, their arms fatigued, and that's when they can't put their arm more. That's when they're worried about takedowns. Honor Khabib fight where, I don't know, he fakes a shot and he comes up with a big overhand. That's something they do really, really well. So, they're sambo and just being able to work to be able to get back up. I'm a conditioning guy. So, being able to add that conditioning, I'm right now in the mountains. So I'm at 8,000 feet altitude. The elevation is ridiculous. And we've just been running mountains every single day. So I'm excited to show my new pace in this. The Wi-Fi goes in and out here.
No problem. For the most part, I could hear what you're saying. It just kind of chopped up that last little bit there. From what I was hearing, you mentioned Bagutinov, obviously. He has that very big sambo background, and you've been working with them in order to like counter that, like take down defense and so on. So are there any other specifics you see, areas to exploit, areas that you need to maybe be more aware against him as a specific opponent?
I think for me, and I've always had this problem, is I'm too forward. One of my opponents, Sean Santella, was a jiu-jitsu guard player, but he couldn't take me down. So he would shoot in and pull guard and use my forward pressure in doing so. Because I'm such a big judo sambo guy myself, I like to pick people up after they shoot, because I want to do either Muay Thai or throw them. So from there, he would just immediately pull guard. With Ali, I know he's going to use that to trip, to be able to tie up and be able to create some type of scramble to get me down on the ground. At least that's what he did against Dustin. He drew him in by kind of walking back, come on, and then either throwing a big overhand right and trying to take him down, or just trying to at least keep the fight close. Me, I have the conditioning for that, but against Ali, I have to make sure I keep my distance the entire time. Definitely implement a lot of body shots, because he is a person who does start to fatigue very, very fast. And me, with my pressure, man, I know in the first round, I'm going to make him work. and he has his own little pace, but it's kind of like the Tyron Woodley fight. If you go against Tyron Woodley at his pace, he's gonna beat you. But if you push him, as you saw in his last 4 UFC fights, if you push him to the brink, he can't do it. He doesn't open up as much. He starts to fatigue more. It's the same thing with Ali. If you go at Ali's pace, he's gonna win the fight. He's perfectly fine. But if you watch his fights against, Kyoji Horiguchi, Demetrius Johnson, any person who's really pushed the forward pressure, I mean, that's my whole game. And I can wrestle and scramble. I think he's going to gas out against me. So I just have to make sure I keep the fight on the feet. And if I don't keep it on the feet and I keep it on the ground, then I keep moving and make him work the entire time. So by the time we get back up, he's completely exhausted.
If I could shift gears a little bit, because I'm really curious about your perspective on this. If we were to jump back a couple of years, you were in the thick of
Mm-hmm.
it. There was this kind of debate, like when the UFC was like, what are we going to do with the flyweight division? And there was the trading going on, and sort of this big conversation around the lighter weight classes. Do you feel like there's a different sort of respect for the lighter weight classes in Brave and sort of like that part of the world outside of the UFC in North America?
100%. When I got signed to a dying weight class. So I had literally the shortest end of the stick possible. I was one of the last guys to be signed before this whole UFC demise. And I'm not a person to kiss ass, so I was given 2 ultimatums, was really mistreated, and I spoke out about it, and when Demetrius got traded, I was like, I kind of think we're gonna start being cut. It was just an accusation video, an assumption video, and all these different websites, bjpen.com, MMA Junkie, Fighting News, they shared it, and UFC didn't like it, and I guess I just so happened to be right and kind of called their bluff before they what they were doing. So I ended up kind of fast tracking the demise of the flyweight division. So I'm sorry, guys, but I got cut in the meantime, and so when I went to Brave, man, I've even put Brave through certain stuff, given all uncontrollable stuff where I've gotten injured, had to pull out of fights. My father passing away, having to pull out a fight 2 days before, and they've obviously have been super respectable with me. But it's crazy. It's a promotion ran by fighters, and it's not just Brave, but all these promotions around the world. They see everyone as fighters. They don't care about the weight class. You look at boxing. Manny Pacquiao is famous. Lomachenko is famous. Rigondeaux, Donaire, all these small guys are popular and they promote them. The UFC just never promoted small guys. I mean, Demetrius Johnson was literally the best champion in the UFC's, champion ranks. I think 11 title defenses, was undefeated at the time, at least in his reign in the UFC. And he was, suplexing people to an armbar, but he wasn't popular. That wasn't because of him. That was because the promotion didn't do a good enough job to make the world know who he was. Yeah, I mean, it's like you look at fighters like Colby Covington or even Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo literally changed his whole game plan, his whole persona just to get popular. Colby Covington did the same thing. He was already in the UFC, but no one liked him. So he's like, you know what? I'm just start talking smack to everybody. And look at that. He did his own job and became popular. We don't have that in the flyweight division. We have Brandon Moreno, and I think he's phenomenal, but he's not popular. He's popular in Mexico. He's popular in other countries, Latin countries, and I think that's phenomenal. I have nothing against Brandon Moreno, but when it comes to the States, not many people know him still. So I'm hoping that not just Brave, but because Brave's already doing their job doing this flyweight tournament. And that's I believe it's the only flyweight tournament in the whole world that's ever happened. But I hope the UFC learns from Brave and goes, maybe we should start respecting these flyweight guys, because Brandon Moreno kind of the limelight back in, obviously with the Figueiredo trilogy. Hopefully that comes to fruition in January again. But I'm excited to see that fight too. But man, it sucks how the UFC treated a lot of small guys, especially myself, especially on my accolades, because I worked very hard to get to that point. But it is what it is. Having to face and go through mental traumas with that, sucks. And you work your whole life to a point and they treat you like crap and cut you, and it's like, oh, great. But dude, Brave have just signed a new fight deal with Brave, and it's for a reason. They treat me well, they pay me well, and the respect factor. I'm not going to go to another promotion unless, and that's the reason why I re-signed the Brave for this tournament. And it's this is what I expected in the biggest promotion in the world, and that's why Brave is the fastest growing promotion in the world for fighters.
For sure. And yeah, it seems like a lot of the promotions out there, well, Brave, One, Ryzen, like a lot more of those promotions seem to push the smaller weight classes a lot more than the UFC, and that's very exciting. I won't take up a lot much more of your time, but before we go, I do need to ask, do you have an official prediction on how you get it done on the 6th?
I do want to state also with those promotions that you mentioned, typically has smaller guys. So naturally, I feel that that's a custom that they have to promote the small guys. I mean, you look at Ryzen and ONE FC, they have a strawweight weight class for the gentlemen. I think that's a natural thing. But with Demetrius Johnson being signed to ONE FC, they have to promote the small guys. And I think it Johnson, but bringing an American overseas that's small, that can use his name to get that much better. And I think those promotions are doing phenomenal. Look at Kyoji Horiguchi doing the Bellator and Ryzen thing. I think that's phenomenal. So, but with that being said, Ali Bagutinov, I don't see it going to distance. They call him the Puncher King. He hasn't gotten a finished TKO, but I'm a person that sadly does stand in front of my opponent a lot, and I like to stand and bang and do the firefight. But I know I have to fight to get him tired and get him exhausted and get him in my type of fight. And one of us will get knocked out. And for me, I can see me knocking him out in round 2, but I want to get this job done as soon as possible, as fast as possible, because I want to be as healthy as possible for this next fight. And this tournament has been going on technically, I believe, for 2 years because of COVID. And I know they want to get the next fight out as soon as possible. So I want to walk out as healthy as possible. And I also want to solidify a statement to my next opponent.
Have you looked at Akazov at all? For that potential matchup if you do get to the finals there? Have you studied? I know obviously your focus is definitely on Valentina right now, but
I commentated his fight when he was fighting Marcel Dur originally for the flyweight championship, and he won the fight, but he ended up missing weight, so he couldn't claim the inaugural flyweight championship. And watching it, I was like, oh, this is a typical striker versus wrestler. And while watching this, I believe in I think it was 2018, I was like, I'm not really impressed. Like, they're both good, but it's very one style versus one style. And as long as I can be a well-rounded fighter, I'm not too worried. But watching his fights, he had 2 fights against Zach Mikowski. He's the least experienced out of all of us, so he's the wild card. And I believe Zach Mikowski beat him twice in both fights. But, and again, it is what it is. I'm not a judge, and I'm glad I'm not a judge. But he's a wild card, and he's so awkward with his style that it's gotten him this far in his career. And I think that's something that's phenomenal. For me, I believe you look at the fight between Demetrius Johnson and Tim Elliott. There's a reason why Demetrius Johnson struggled in that first round, because Tim Elliott is literally called awkward MMA. You can't read him. And by the time you do read him, it's usually later on in the fight. Just Demetrius Johnson's fight IQ is phenomenal, that after the first round, he's like, all right, I know what he's doing. It just took him an entire round to solve the equation of Tim Elliott. So with Vali Morad, man, he's the same thing. He's just such an awkward guy, but with high level sambo as well. I can't let him get in close. So I got to be able to do my thing. But for me, I never expect to live tomorrow. So, and I know it's super dark, turn, but that's why I'm, just focused on this one opponent, and hopefully, get to that point, everything goes well, and, get ready for the next fight. So I always just look forward to today, hoping for tomorrow, and, whatever opponent's in front of me, that's the guy I focus on first.
All right. Well, I'll let you get back to your day. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate your time so much. Good luck on the 6th. Rooting for you.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for your time. To all the guys at MMA Island, you all are dope. And please, man, do your thing, and I can't wait. Until next time.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.